When white ladies like me get angry, it's often dismissively blamed on our monthly menstrual cycles. But imagine just how infuriating it would be if all of your negative emotions were blamed on your year-round skin tone.
I want to pick up on something that Jane said about the angry black woman. Who are the black women you see on the local news at night in cities all over the country? They're usually angry about something.
Of the angry black woman is a prime example of how these categorizations function as social control mechanisms. You see, slavery, racism, and pop culture have cooked up and perpetuated three primary typecasts for African American women: the mammy, the sapphire, and the Jezebel. On one end of this racist spectrum is the mammy, who emerged as a desexualized, often overweight caregiver to white slave-owning families, a role misperceived as compassionate compensation for the lack of her own personal and familial autonomy.
About time one of you lunkheads said it.
On the other end is a hypersexualized and often lighter-skinned Jezebel, portrayed as an irresistible temptress in order to justify the systematic rape and impregnation of enslaved women. Then, smack dab in the middle is the sapphire, aka the angry black woman stereotype. A slightly newer invention than the mammy and the Jezebel, the sapphire functions to simultaneously marginalize black women's intelligence and respectability while also channeling through her racialized fear and disdain of black men. Ever since her stage debut in early 19th century minstrel shows where she was performed by white dudes in blackface, the sapphire has been played up for laughs as a less civilized contrast to proper white ladies. Sapphire's namesake emerged quite a bit later on America's favorite radio show, Amos N Andy, which aired from 1928 to 1960. And the show's delightful comedic premise that white audiences love to tune into, mocking the hijinks and dialect of its black characters, including Sapphire, the hot-tempered and constantly berating wife of the bumbling George Kingfish Stevens. Even though the NAACP and civil rights activists were instrumental in getting the televised version of Amos N Andy finally pulled from syndication in 1966, Sapphire has been alive and not so well on screen ever since, with the brunt of her almost surrealist aggression usually targeted to black male characters. There's Aunt Esther in Sanford and Son.
You just keep sucking on that sucker.
Willona Woods in Good Times. Housekeeper Florence Johnson in The Jeffersons.
Flossy me, I done made you mad.
Pam on Martin. Rochelle in Everybody Hates Chris. Terry in Barbershop. Rasputia in Norbit. Angela in Why Did I Get Married? Not to mention pretty much all of Tyler Perry's Madea empire. Entire reality shows sometimes revolve around this trope, such as Real Housewives of Atlanta, Love and Hiphop, and the Bad Girls Club. Laverne Cox told BuzzFeed that when she was a long time ago contestant on I Want to Work for P. Diddy, she had to actively resist producers' pressures for her to play up being an angry black woman on screen.
You and me are gonna make a great team.
Oh, you looking for a sassy black friend?
Now, of course, this long-standing and infuriating stereotype doesn't just live on screen. A 2015 Essence survey found that 70% of the African American women they talked to said that they fear their co-workers perceiving them as angry black women and instead try to mold their personality to come across as acculturated girls next door. But this stereotype can't just be out-achieved. Case in point, New York Times TV critic Alessandra Stanley collapsing Shonda Rhimes as well as her complex characters of Grey's Anatomy's Dr. Miranda Bailey, How to Get Away with Murder's Annalise Keating, and Scandal's Olivia Pope into angry black women, largely based on them being black women. Even being First Lady doesn't stop it.
As potentially the first African American First Lady, I was also the focus of another set of questions and speculations, conversations sometimes rooted in the fears and misperceptions of others. Was I too loud or too angry or too emasculating?
And simply replacing angry with strong isn't helping matters either.
Child, please, you speak the truth.
Which is something that professor and MSNBC host Melissa Harris Perry describes as a derogatory ideal that props up this myth of the strong black woman who simply doesn't need any resources or support because she can manage on her own. Hence, no need for us to fix anything. And just in case it isn't clear enough that the angry black woman is a racist pop cultural concoction, there's even empirical data to myth bust it. A 2009 study found that not only did African American women report significantly less frequent angry reactions in the face of perceived disrespect, negative evaluations, and criticism, younger women in particular were far likelier to suppress rather than express intense anger. Intense anger. So when it comes to what we should do about this angry black woman stereotype, I think Angela Bassett's got the right idea. Oh,